and kind of each new reading as a whole brings you deeper. What were your thoughts on that?
I think it's horse crap. My idea is the best.
Welcome back to the hunt for Posey's treasure. This is episode number 11. Date of recording is July 23rd, 2025. When we last spoke, we started diving in to the source material, most specifically the poem itself, Beyond the Map's Edge, going line by line, or for those of you who joined us, we learned couplet by couplet and stanza by stanza. But that work was not complete, and so that is what remains for us today, is to continue through. But before we dive into that, we're going to share a little bit of an update in regards to a potential clue we've been teasing. But before we get to that, I'm going to turn to the Cowboy, my co-host. I'm going to ask you, what's going on with your solve? Where are you at in this world of mystery and mayhem?
Wow, thank you for that introduction. I like the tease of a tease during the tease. Wow, we're really stepping our logic up on this podcast.
A lot of teasing.
A lot of teasing. I mean, that's the name of this game. But, yeah, week was good. I'm still pretty much set in my ways, heads down, thinking about the poem in a more general sense, going general to tighter to bam, you find it. But I don't have any massive breakthroughs or anything. I had an idea of where I think it could be, but it's still like we were talking with friend of the pod, Dr. Clowns, I think we call him. It does, I think, revolve around that third stanza, it's this whole bride thing. What is the bride? What does that mean? And I'm still trying to, in everything I've done, I haven't quite solved for that. So I keep hitting that hiccup. So that's kind of where I'm at, which we've been talking about off air quite a bit. But yeah, that's where I'm at. How's your week been?
My week has been fantastic, but before I answer this, a quick correction. We don't call him Dr. Clowns. His name is Dr. Clowns. He earned his PhD at Clown College, and that's who he is. But that said, to draw back on what you've been talking about, your theory, your way of diagnosing the poem, Dr. Clown, speaking of, shared a fantastic Reddit thread with us. I think it was yesterday, where there was a gentleman that basically echoed your sentiment. He laid it out there, as you can expect, much more articulately and just more brilliantly. But
for the record, that was after this podcast dropped. For the record.
That's true. But that said, I'm trying to pull it up now. Oh, it is working. For a second, it wasn't loading, and I was like, dude, maybe he deleted it and got cold feet. But yeah, the thread there on r/Beyond the Map's Edge, the title is "Think Like a Genius!" ! And he basically broke into, as I said, great depth, echoing your sentiment, but he had some wrinkles in there. Specifically, I love that he talked about, Justin said his most proficient code is C++. We covered that as part of the QA. I threw it in. I said, maybe this is meaningful. Well, this guy found some meaning in that. He basically explains that there's loops in terms of that programming, and it makes sense. And he took his one step a little further than your theory, where he doesn't just think it kind of lets you hone in, but it's almost that you have to continue reading the poem over and over again in circles, and kind of each new reading as a whole brings you deeper. What were your thoughts on that?
I think it's horse crap. My idea is the best. There's loops. I need someone to explain to me a little more articulately and clear on, if you're reading it over and over again, how that actually applies to finding the treasure. Are you telling me that you take the idea of going big circle, medium circle, small circle, point, and then you do it again and again? I don't think that's how this, I just disagree with that. I think it's linear. I don't think it's looped in a way where it goes down the rabbit hole, then you start back at the top and you go down, and you start back at the top and you go. That just doesn't. I would need a little bit more on that. It's not clicking for me. Does that resonate with you? Do you find that more compelling?
Well, to illustrate specifically, here's how he describes it. He says, the poem is a loop. First stanza sets the base of the, quote, program. So the second through the fourth are looped as many times as it takes to find the point and the checkpoint. The last stanza gives you the results. What you seek, you already know. So the second stanza is the first actionable clue. It means one thing on the first pass, but then the next pass, it means something different. So yeah, this is a little complicated. He doesn't explain specifically, and he doesn't actually give a solve. Like, this is, using this strategy, I've now honed in on this location. It's more of kind of, I just had the word and it escaped me, but it kind of established like a genesis or a format with which to attack this, but didn't give us really anything beyond that, is where I'm left. So
I gave the format. What are you talking about?
Okay.
It opens with the first stanza. 2, 3, and 4 are how you narrow it down to find it, and it closes with the fifth. This concept of like the second, third, and fourth stanza looping, I just don't understand. That doesn't work for me. Like, I think that this guy, yeah, he took the idea a little further, but that doesn't mean it's like at all accurate. It doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't. But I mean, this guy definitely listened to the podcast, definitely, taking our ideas, running with them, which is fine. That's why we're doing this. But
yes, his handle is u/trick_ambassador_945. Thanks for listening. Would appreciate if you cited us in your work.
Yeah, I mean, it's all good. It's all good. But I don't understand this whole loop thing. I mean, I get the concept that like loops are involved in the coding of C++, but that I don't think that, again, too, going back to how Justin had put it, in the way in which he's described, he's written this. It took him a couple hours to write it. I think that's a rabbit hole beyond like a general concept that may be valid.
I mean, he talked about that, though. It's only 5 stanzas, 20 lines, no red herrings. Watch the show, read the book, then read the poem a couple times. He thinks that's meaningful, but yeah, I don't know. I do, though. This guy sounds like he understands a little bit more about coding and illustrates it, and I thought that aspect was interesting. But yeah, I can barely read or write. I don't know what it means or in practice, but I am coming around more and more that this isn't linear. It is a top-down, zeroing in each stanza, getting you a little closer.
Good. I'm glad you're seeing it the right way. But with that, it's not like that takes you there. It just is a way of thinking about it. You still have to figure out, and we were chatting about this as well, as like, I'm pretty much dug in on the fact that like there's a fishing component to this. I know that sounds silly, but some people are looking in places where like there is not fishing, or fishing isn't relevant, or it's not related to Justin's past with fishing. And that, to me, I think that this whole thing is centered around like, you have to start looking in fishing areas that more or less probably mean something to him, or there's some connection there. And that's where I think I'm at, is I'm trying to figure out, where are those places? The obvious place that I had been thinking is that there is a town, Wisdom, Montana. So I was thinking that like Wisdom waits in shadowed sight. Wisdom, the town, is literally in a valley between two mountains. It could quite literally at times be in a shadowed sight. So that's kind of where I had been playing around and looking, but I'm still like not connecting certain dots within the poem to places around that. So I've been kind of looking other places, but it's I wouldn't say it's been very fruitful thus far.
Yeah, I think we touched on this either last episode or the episode prior, but like the line, around the bend, past the hole, I wait for you to cast your pole. Like, there's no real interpretation of that that's not fishing that I've found. And if there is, it just seems in complete direct conflict with the idea of no red herrings. So I'm with you there. But the part where I stumble a little, though, is like, Forest Fens was just so much about a fishing location too, you know?
Yeah, but Justin has a background in fishing as well.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I wait for you to cast your pole. He says there's no red herrings. To cast your pole so clearly is, that's fishing. Like, there isn't any way around that. Like, it would be a red herring.
There might be.
What do you mean there might be?
Maybe it's not referring to the act of fishing, but to a fish, which fishing names of fish could lend themselves to areas that maybe now aren't necessarily places to fish. I don't have any off the top of my head, but like, you know, maybe there's a Cape Cod. You know what I mean?
I am not following you at all. I'm sorry.
Well, like I'm saying, you're thinking about it as, oh, I wait for you to cast your pole. Clearly that refers to fishing, verb, the act of casting a pole and catching a fish. But I'm saying maybe it's more refers to a fish itself, a noun, and like that's the clue is actually it's a name. So I being the fish, like let's say
so you're going POV fish. Okay,
yeah, that's another way I think to consider it, where you could claim like maybe there's an again. This is I should have an example would make this a lot better. But if there was like a name of an area or a landmark that was involved with a fish or referred to a fish, but maybe wasn't necessarily a lake or somewhere you actually fish, I think that then would fit in this regard. Like maybe there's like a salmon mountain, you know, out in New Mexico. Maybe it's not actually a place where there's salmon you can cast your pole, but like salmon, they wait for you to cast your, you know what I mean? That's just the other POV kind of came to me here. And we've talked about all these allusions to fish and the container potentially being a fish. So I think that could be a wrinkle there. But again,
that gave me actually a really interesting idea that...
look at that.
Yeah, actually, I'm starting to think like taking the POV of a fish, like maybe I don't want to say this on the pod and spoil it, but that actually, I need to reread the poem now thinking that in mind.
All right. Well, look at that. Old Tronny might have sparked something, but that said, to backtrack, we teased it in the opening, and I meant to refer to it after your teaser or response to my teaser. I'm not sure where we are on the teaser chain, daisy chain here. But you talked about what have I been doing this week? Well, listeners, I'm going to go ahead and tell you something that Cowboy has not been doing this week, and that is looking at topographical maps. And that is because we're here, we're on the forefront, we're objective, we're honest, we're open. I'm going to go ahead and say it. We screwed up. It ended up not being a clue. It fizzled out. Our first big whiff in the history of the pod that we'd been teasing, been building up. The potential clue that we were convinced was from Netflix was there's a shot of Justin's car. It has a very clear kind of topographical map on the car. There's specific like altitudes or whatever, elevation numbers. And we had been trying to be like, that location on the truck, that's the location area. So we've been trying to kind of match that up. Well, lesson here for y'all listeners, all right? I should have weeks ago gone on Reddit, typed in like Justin truck, because I went ahead and did that when we hopped off the mic last week. And unfortunately was notified by some dutiful people out there that wrap that's on Justin's truck, it's just a generic stock image. It's not a clue. My bad. I'll take the credit for that one. My bad, Cowboy. My bad, listeners. Not a clue.
Yes, so I guess I'll tell my side of that story. When Tron first got me excited about this old treasure hunt, one of the first things he sent me was a topographical image that was stuck to the side of Justin Posey's car. That was something I was very excited about because I spent a bunch of time trying to figure out what that was. The amount of hours and time that I put into looking into that was what we call bullshit. So thank you, Tron.
Yeah, it was a rabbit hole. I took credit for it. All right, I saddled up there. It was a rabbit hole, a thread that led to nowhere. And at the very first episode, I promised y'all, we're going to follow some threads. And, I mean, all but one, I would imagine, are going to lead to nowhere. And this is one of them. The first of the ones, we hyped it a bit. I apologize to the YouTube subscribers that were eagerly anticipating us to reveal this. But that is the way that this thing goes. It is the first, probably not even the first, but it certainly will not be the last. But again, that's where we're at. So Netflix clues, though, which brings me to a final point before we dive back into the poem. So that rules out that. I went ahead, as promised, on our Blue Sky, published all the still shots that I had pulled from Netflix, and None of them still are compelling, but in the meantime, we had a wonderful YouTube commenter. I think I've mentioned her or him multiple times so far because they've given very good just thoughts and nice notes on our YouTube. That is Marie Jose N4I said, look at the scene with Fenn's lawyer. And I thought that was very clever because I hadn't considered that. If it does, I think, match the criteria. Justin's not in the shot, but we could imagine he had some semblance of control over it, but maybe not. But the thing that stuck out is the shot where they're interviewing Fenn's lawyer. He's in his office. If you look closely on his desk, it's just really oddly placed. There's a stack of 3 little stones on the left-hand side of the desk, and then just to the right of them, there is a little red car. It looks like a red old Volkswagen Bug. You remember that, Cowboy?
I do, yes.
And we couldn't really discern anything from that still, but it is intriguing, and it seems 99% intentional. Like, those things, the filmmakers would have flagged that as like, yo, there's this crap, can we move it? I don't know, man. Where are you at with this? Do you think that's a clue? Or it seems too intentional to me to not be a clue, and I do think there's a great note.
Yeah, I do. I think that it's probably some kind of clue. The way in which it's being interpreted, I have no idea. What do you think?
That's where we ended up is, okay, so we thought about how can you interpret each of these. The car, it was red, and it was potentially a bug, so like maybe red bug was where we came up. And then the stack of rocks, if you look them up, that term for what that is called a cairn, C-A-I-R-N. So it was like cairn bug, cairn red bug, red cairn bug. Those don't really go together, but maybe you got to scramble, unscramble the letters. I don't know. Listeners, have y'all explored that? Commenter who shared this? Like, do you have any thoughts on this? And again, it kind of goes back to like we're getting a lot of cryptic stuff thrown at us, man. We need more hand-holding, right?
Yeah, some of the comments that we get are in the vein of, wow, that's really great. You're getting there, but you're not quite there. Keep going. Or like it's like yes, we know that, but you don't know this. And it's like, well, tell us. Well, tell us.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But anyways, appreciate that. As it stands, still completely stumped on what these Netflix clues are. These 2 obvious clues that are in the 2nd and 3rd episode, according to Justin's Q&A answers. But we're going to move on back, dive into the poem. Or do you have any final thoughts there, Cowboy? I know I can hear the wheels are turning since we talked about that fish thing.
Yes, the wheels are turning. No, let's keep it moving.
All right. So when we left off, we were done with the 2nd stanza, which is as hope surges, clear and bright, walk near water, silent flight. Round the bend, past the hole, I wait for you to cast your pole. We actually timely just talked about that, so let's move on. In Ursa East, his realm awaits, his bride stands guard at ancient gates. Any thoughts on the first line or the couplet itself? Second line, where are you at with that one?
So, Ursa East, everyone Ursa bear, like everyone goes this bear route. And then there's also like an astrology component, or is it astrology? I guess I don't know.
Astronomy.
Astronomy. Thank you. I'm a little less open to a star's perspective, because that changes too with the rotation of the Earth and the tilt. It's like it gets really complicated, and for a few hours to put this together, like bringing all that in seems a little out there to me. I think the hardest part, there's 2 fundamentally tricky things in this entire thing that I haven't been able to solve, is this bride. Obviously, the bride part of this is very tricky, because you then start searching in history of like famous brides. For a long time, I thought maybe it was Sacagawea. I don't know. I was going all over the place. The bride thing's very difficult, and it mentions his bride, and then later it says return her face, referring to the bride, assumingly. So it's really tricky. And then you have the gates. To me, the gates, if this is in Montana, I've always referred to the ancient gates, or thought of the ancient gates as like the gates to the Rockies, which can be like large rocks that usually shape a river or something. And they're quite literally natural gateways into like the Rocky Mountains, which have been formed by water eroding rock over long periods of time. So that's what I've always thought. The problem is that that's all very general. It's not very specific. But we're starting to get more specific here, right? I think the stanza prior to this is like kind of a general fishing stanza. It kind of talks about, obviously, like water, fishing, hope, those kinds of things. It does mention bend past the whole yes, but this is where it starts to become obviously more detailed and more interesting, like the words that are used, the way in which it's said, I don't have obviously the answer, but we're getting closer, and I'm really curious like what bride in the Ursa means.
Yeah, the bride, there's certain, if you had to take like 4 key words in this poem, bride certainly on there, the whole being capitalized on there. There's 1 or 2 others, but those are just, they're so clearly specific that it's eroding my brain. But to touch on what you said, I agree. I think involving the constellations, it veers too far into the area of like, you need technical knowledge to understand this and to crack this. Like, to me, as you said, that all can vary depending on the time of the year, the seasons. I don't even know beyond that. Like, is it really he's going to have people like triangulate that in order to find this thing? That just seems way too beyond the scope of what we've talked about. So I'm with you there. But that said, the 2 most common, and I don't even know if I've seen suggestions otherwise, but the 2 interpretations are Ursa as in bear, or Ursa as in Ursa Major / minor, the constellations. I don't know beyond that, like where else. The only other thing I came up with early on is if he's going real tricky with wording and playing games, is like Ursa. Okay, let's change that to bear, B-E-A-R. Okay, then let's take the homonym of that, B-A-R-E, as in like veer or head towards bear east. Like, so from that point you head east. Again, it's so generic, I don't know if that does anything, but I'm with you. I think it's either like with this line, it's one or the other, unless anyone else there's got a third interpretation of what Ursa can mean. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I agree. It's that's interesting, like bear east. I haven't thought about it that way. That could be it. Because I do think in this stanza, obviously we're dialing in, we're getting closer. The problem is that I'm having a hard time with, okay, say you find a general spot. Are we like, is it boots on the ground at this point? Like at what point do you actually have to be physically standing there to see? Like it gets tricky. It's tough. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think, and then, we've talked a technical aspect of the Ursa East. The very next couplet is her foot of 3 at 20 degree, return her face to find the place. This specific couplet seems like the most convoluted, because this is like the opposite of the Ursa East. I've seen like 50,000 interpretations of this line, you know what I mean? Just even the foot of 3 and then the 20 degree, like you can look on a compass, 20 degrees sets you in one location, or is it, I don't know. And then foot of 3, is it a yard? Is it a physical foot? I don't know, man.
Yeah, as people that listen to this know, her foot of 3 at 20 degrees has been the most mind-bending, perplexing, pliable, malleable sentence in this whole damn thing that I've not been able to get my mind around. I've had many ideas that have fallen completely flat. For a long time, I've thought quite literally about degrees. I thought about lat lines, longitude lines. I thought about I've really exhausted this line in my mind. This one's tough, and I think that it's probably less complex than we think it is. That's where I've kind of landed I think it's maybe a bit more literal, and when truth be told, we know what it is. It'll be duff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I have a feeling, but I don't know. I just don't know. It's tricky. And then, we return back to the bride, return her face to find the place. What the hell does that mean? Faceless bride?
Well, let's dive into the kind of flip side of the coin is in Ursa East, yes, but his realm awaits. Every time I hear that line, it just instinctively, I think about Justin's grandfather. And in terms of the book, but then maybe it's his father, but he describes both of them in the book as these kind of like larger than life characters who have like domain over their like areas. And I think the idea of like his realm, like Montana or Dylan Montana was like his realm, his world that he kind of owned. That's where I kind of am immediately led to, but it's like, because there's two people in this. It's the bride, but it's also him, who is the husband of the bride. That's kind of an unlock to this stanza that I haven't heard explored too much.
Yeah. It's a great point. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know.
And then, okay, so his bride stands tall at ancient gates. So that, to me, illustrates two landmarks, effectively, maybe they're combined as one, but it's two structures, or, whatever you want to refer to them. It's the bride standing tall and then the ancient gates. So I feel like it's kind of like a vertical structure, and then gates are horizontal. That's as my mind's kind of perceiving this. That's kind of where I'm landing. But again, these are like, I'm still have my eyes completely shut and I'm feeling through the dark, but that's what my hands are feeling right now. A little nice tall structure there and a little wide kind of gates there. Is that what you're seeing?
How the hell are you going to find that?
Well, I'm just saying, like, let's say we're exploring these areas and all of a sudden we see a photo of a place and it's like a boom, kind of lines up with that visually. I don't know. I'm just riffing, baby.
Yeah. The disconnect between theory and reality is vast right now.
And then foot of three.
Yeah, I mean, obviously 36, foot of 3, 12 inches in a foot.
The use of the preposition of, to me, is really interesting here because it can be interpreted so many ways. The way they're connected, like her foot of 3 as in she has 3 of them, or 1 foot from, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've kind of thought her foot of 3 could be, maybe it's like talking about a river split or something, like her foot of 3, like the feet of a river, like a river turns into 3 streams. I don't know how at 20 degree incorporates at that, unless, if you look at like a compass, the 20 degree mark would be northeast, right? So it'd be, maybe it's like, it's saying like at that is where it splits, so it's telling you kind of like in that area. Maybe, I don't freaking know, man.
Yeah, and then return her face. Like, what kind of action could that be describing? That I'm also stumped on. The only thing that comes to me is the coin stuff. Like, return her face, but then where are you returning means to bring something back to its original location, or to repeat something that's already been done. So we're returning her face from where it traveled to where it initiated.
I don't know. That's...
Or turning, return. Uh-huh. This is where this hunt takes you, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then the place. So what is that? Is that the checkpoint? Is where you go next? I don't know. I agree. This is the one stanza, that I just kind of hit the roadblock with. My hope is like, as I come up with a solve, is like I'll kind of do the first and then the last, and maybe they can then bridge a connection and find the answer to this in doing that. Is that where you're at too, or
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like every day it's a different idea. So I don't know. I'm having a hard time. My mind is bending.
Well, before it explodes, we'll continue on to stanza 4 then, which is double arcs on granite bold where secrets of the past still hold. So double arcs, an arc being about a half circle. I think we could agree on that as an interpretation, but then it's which way is the arc? Is it kind of like a top half of the oval or the bottom half or the sides? You know what I mean? Where are you at with double arcs? Is that the letter M?
I had gone down that rabbit hole. I've gone down quite a few rabbit holes, but I think double arc, quite literally it could be 2 double arcs on granite, right? I think also the second part of that, where secrets of the past still hold, can you refresh my memory when he talks about some of this being man-made or not? Because a part of me for a long time thought double arcs could be like a bridge, like an old rail bridge or something, connecting 2 cliffs between a canyon,
That the way, or the official word is, the treasure is not associated with any man-made structure, but the clues can be. However, nothing is associated with any man-made buildings. And then when he was asked about this specifically on the Q&A, Is the entire hunt based on naturally occurring structures and landscapes, he was asked, and he said, I consider them, railroads, to be a man-made structure. Yes, they were made by man. They're not a building, they're a structure. And then he followed up, he said, I think I mentioned earlier there are a couple different ways to work through the poem. And then depending on how you interpret it, it could be true to say that, yes, the entire hunt could be based on naturally occurring structures, but I think some people could quibble, so I should clarify that there's one clue in here where someone could arguably say there is a man-made implication to it. So that door is open, just don't go through it too frequently is my take.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, then I don't know. Yeah, I maybe it's more of a natural granite arch, I guess.
Yeah, but arch is ARCH, right? This is arc, which is kind of like, that is the path a moving object takes as it crosses kind of, I don't even know. I can't define all these words off the top of my head.
Double arcs, maybe, yeah, like a river arcs around granite or something?
Yeah, or I think about like, shooting stars arcing through the sky. Like maybe it's an allusion to shooting stars. But yeah, double arcs. To me, this is the one. I think this is got to be in line with the idea of like a checkpoint. I just feel like this is a clue that when you do see it, it's going to click and be like, there they are, double arcs. But then granite, bold. The bold part, like where strong granite kind of, as it's inherently is bold. It's a very dense rock that forms massive, structures in nature. You know what I mean? Like why the bold part?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
On granite, bold. So bold is dark in fonts. You bolden.
Yeah.
But beyond that, those are my interpretations. I don't know. Double arcs. And then one idea is like, if you take one arc and then flip it, does that make a circle? Is the circle considered two arcs kind of on top of each other flips?
Yeah. No.
Yeah?
I don't know. I'm not a geometrist.
Yeah. All right. Then secrets of the past still hold. Still hold. They haven't been solved yet. They hold. Secrets hold. So the secrets.
Secrets of the past still hold. I don't know.
So it still holds. Secrets of the past, I think, is the clearest interpretation. So, like, it's an area of mystery and intrigue that's kind of been so for some time, I feel like is the interpretation here. Or maybe it's an area where there was formerly gold. There still is gold hidden.
Or maybe it's like he's going deeper where, like, the past being, like, fossils and, like, old relics of the past.
There you go.
Yeah.
Secrets of they still are. I mean, my wife, Lady Tron, I don't want to spoil it, but it's a commonly held solution is she really thinks that Crystal Park, Montana is like really in the vicinity of it. And this is part of it. She really feels like that's where he would go and dig up treasures as a kid. And they're still there. You can still go there and dig up these gems out of the earth. And they're kind of like those secrets of the past are still there. Secrets of the past, though, fossils, I think, is a big one there, or like ancient stuff going on. The secrets part, though, like there's clearly some unanswered question or intrigue related to this area, and that is going on to this day. It is not. That's where my mind is wandering with this as I'm rereading this and thinking how to interpret it.
Yeah, maybe it has to do with like mining. I don't know.
So something unknown from history is still there. That's kind of, I think, the clearest interpretation of that line, but we'll move on then to the second couplet of this stanza. Beyond the reach of time's swift race. So it is not affected by time. It is beyond the reach. How would you beyond the reach of time?
Beyond the reach of time's swift race. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like we're babbling fools right now trying to decide because we don't know what it is.
No, I mean, I'm coming up with some interpretations. I've at least clarifying a little bit, I think in my mind at least, like what I'm maybe looking for. Because that's my goal with this whole thing was like, if each of these stanzas is a multiple choice question, like what are the multiple choices? I feel like that can be helpful, at least for me. So that's what I'm kind of just like thinking, like beyond the reach of time's swift race. Obviously, like mountains aren't really affected, but then this whole thing is kind of around the American West, you know?
Maybe it has to do with like if you like time's swift race, like, you know, I mean, like whatever, we're talking about granite and all this and like gates and all of that, like water clearly over time creates like, it's like the swift race of water is like, as time goes on, there's beyond the reach of that. Maybe that means it's just past it or just beyond a river, just beyond the water that is like always constantly moving within time, that race of water, you know?
Yeah, time's swift race. The passage of time, the limited time of human life. Like, clearly this, I think, is an inanimate object, but then maybe it harkens back to like the first stanza about what lives in time. Can you find what lives in time? But then we have beyond the reach of time's swift race, which I hadn't connected that the word time is used twice here in completely separate times of the poem in ways. But then wonder guards this sacred space. That, I think, clearly is like, if you get to that part of the poem, I think you found this treasure. Like, if you have figured out the sacred place, to me, that's it. He's alluded to that. It's sacred. We've talked about this ad nauseum. It whispers of personal lore and meaning. Like, but wonder guard. How does childhood wonder guard something? I don't know. I think it's a literal wonder. Like we've talked about, wasn't there a creek named Wonder Creek?
I think so.
But then guard. Oh my God. Well, we've talked about that there's like a natural barrier. This could lend itself to there's a creek named Wonder, and that sacred place is just beyond it. And the water is kind of guarding that area or shepherding it off from like civilization. I don't know. I'm kind of...
You feeling it?
That makes a little sense, dude.
Okay.
Because I just don't know, like, how the idea of wonder is so philosophical and like theoretical. I just don't know how to crystallize that into concrete meaning other than if it is literally the name of something named wonder. Because just the idea, like, can you even describe what does wonder mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just such a broadly like unphysical, conceptual thing is the word I'm going for. So I don't know, but maybe that lines up with my water thing. You got to explore some of these creeks named Wonder. But then let's move on to the final stanza. Truth rests not in clever minds. Sounds pretty literal. Sounds to me like what he's been saying. You don't need a PhD to hack this. You just need a little bit of know-how. He said you just need to know a little bit about me and my family history and read the book, and you should solve this. So I don't know where you go from there beyond that, but maybe there's some clever interpretation. Clever minds. Not entangled, twisted finds. Is that basically saying the same idea twice in your mind?
Between truth rests not in clever minds, not entangled, twisted finds?
Is that like one unified idea, or do you think those are kind of separate clues? Thoughts?
I honestly think at this point, it's the coda, it's the ending, it's just wrapping it up. I don't think this fifth stanza provides any like really hard evidence, like except for the next line, like a river's steady flow, what you seek you already know. I think at this point you should have already solved it.
Yeah.
And he's just like reiterating like truth rests not in clever minds, not entangled to. He's basically saying, I think in this, like, there's no red herrings. Don't overcomplicate this. Like, and then at the end it's like a river's steady flow, like, and he's almost harkening back to it, like this all has to do around a river. I'm telling you, like, where this is. What you seek, you already know. I think that's kind of how this works.
I think the first two lines, I definitely agree with that. Is basically like, yeah, kind of letting you know, like a coda. I think that was well said. But the river steady flow, what you seek, you already know. That line of all the lines is the one I'm desperate to understand. But then the punctuation mark, the carriage or whatever, the M dash is like the new thing because of all the GPTs put that out. But the use of that dash there is so intentional, and I don't know why, because a comma there works perfectly fine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like it's ending it, which would imply that what's above it is still important.
Maybe. Or like that's the end, and then maybe, like the person said, the clues are in consecutive order, but maybe you read through them a few times. I don't know. And then what? So like a river's steady flow. Okay. So yes, a river always is flowing. It's consistent. What you seek, you already know. I don't understand how those two thoughts connect at all. Like, okay, I'm looking at a river. It's a steady flow. How does that relate to the idea of like, oh, I already knew the answer to what I'm looking for? Because they go in circle? Because it's like water evaporates and then, you know, I don't know. The connection between those two lines to me is complete mystery.
Yeah.
Like, why is that the metaphor or the simile, I guess he says, like a river's steady flow? Why not like a circle or like the day sunrise and sunset? You know what I mean? Like, why is that the point of comparison for what you seek you already know?
Maybe it's instinctual. Like a river's steady flow and what you seek you already know, like it's ingrained in you in some way. Like maybe that goes back to this perspective of reading it from the fish's perspective. You know, like a fish it's instinctual for them to. I don't know. Maybe I'm going off the rails here.
But it does then. I think the broadest interpretation is like, you're there. Just look around. Like, look a little closer where you're at. You found it, kind of thing. And it's already in the poem. Maybe what you're specifically looking for, or go back a few steps, type of thing. That could be an interesting thought too. Like, go back to the granite boulder. I don't know, man. But that is the end of the poem. A lot of questions, a lot of mystery. But yes. I do think we broke a little ground here. Maybe made some leeway, but I also think I'm hopeful our listeners, we might spark a few things in their minds. But again, we're probably just going to get the generic cryptic, like, wow, this helped so much. Now I'm going to go boots on the ground. Thanks, guys. See you later. Like, no, man, we need concrete stuff.
Yeah, we do, man. We really do. Now every time we record these, my mind starts spinning, and then I got to spend some time after this decompressing. But yeah, I have a couple ideas. I'm going to start looking into some stuff. What about you?
I think I'm ready to start exploring some of these locations, start honing in. I do think we made some headway with this fish thing and some of these creeks. I want to start looking at those. So I want to start looking for the literal words that could connect to bodies of water. I think that's my next step. And then maybe look through the Netflix doc again, but I don't know what I missed, man. I feel like I went damn near frame by frame in that thing.
Yeah, well, maybe you missed something.
So we'll continue on this journey, scratching away, feeling through the dark, but that's going to bring this episode to a conclusion as we have reached the conclusion of the poem itself. So much to just wash over us and try and figure out. But I do think we're inching closer. We're at least kind of, as I'm hearing solves and theories, they're all very much like, I think, compelling, and we're making some solid cases, whereas before it was just like, oh, Arizona, oh, Montana, oh, Ursa East is a constellation. I think we got some potential, like, solves brewing here.
Yeah, maybe. I hope so. I really hope so. I'm losing it.
I hope so. But we'll get there eventually. We're going to find this thing. Not this week. So I guess until next week, we will talk to you then. That's going to do it for us here on episode 11 of The Hunt for Posey's Treasure. Thank you all for joining us, whether it's your first pod or you're a seasoned hunter, been with us from the beginning. We love you. We appreciate you. We will talk to you next episode. And until then, happy hunting, my friends.
And stay safe.